and since I got to college was joining the Orthodox Jewish community. And how I got there is a whole nother class. But once I got into the Orthodox Jewish community and I studied the writings of Chabad and Breslov and the Lithuanians and all these different parts of the Jewish world, I still felt that there was something else I wanted. There was some other key I was looking for. And so in terms of the question of inspiration, I got a lot of inspiration from all these beautiful groups and the teachers. I got a lot of inspiration from John Coltrane, the great jazz saxophone player. And I thought, what is he saying that I could find in Judaism? And how could this end up being a something? And so I spent 10 years in a room in New York City trying to figure it out at Fort Washington, 187 at Fort Washington. And I came up with some good ideas. And one of those was the universal language room of having people improvise together and share melodies. And that led me to today, where I found a rabbi from 800 years ago who said the same thing 800 years ago. And I thought, it can't be. It just can't be. And it is. So I got so excited. I said, Lauren, can I do a class on it? And so that brings me back to the first part of this thing. Right. She said, yeah, sure.
Great. Do you want to share a little bit about Abulafia, or do you want to do like a quick demo and maybe we have a little musical interlude to mix things up? Where are you at?
I'd like to share my screen, Shoshana, and show you a little bit about Abulafia right here. Let me use my finger to go back a couple. So this is, I don't know who made this picture, but this is one of the covers of Abulafia's book. And so in a nutshell, he's trying to say that spirituality can be balanced with rational thinking and philosophy. And that was, even today, is kind of a radical approach for the Kabbalah and mysticism. And he said, that's no problem. You can put both together. And he said there's a way to connect to God through music, but he said through Hebrew letters. Okay, so I'm going to show this to you. This is the whole spark. This happened about, I don't know, about 2 years ago, but during COVID pandemic, the light bulb really went off. So This is a book from Yehuda Albertini, one of Abulafia's students, where he maps out a Kabbalistic meditation manual. So if you look here, these Hebrew letters, I'll just explain it very briefly. There's an Aleph, a Bet, and a Gimel, and a Dalet. They're 4 Hebrew letters. So he says in Hebrew, these 4 letters can build 24 houses. And I always thought, well, that's great. That's very nice. I have no idea what he's talking about. And so I would put the book down. So I think it was last summer, I picked the book up again and I put it down again. I said, no, I don't understand what he's saying. And then I picked up this jazz manual from a saxophonist, Jerry Bergonzi. And he says, with 4 notes, you can make 24 permutations. I'm like, wait a minute, I just saw that. What is that? So I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, is modern jazz the decoder key for 800-year-old Kabbalah?
John Coltrane was right the whole time.
Doesn't that sound like a light bulb going off? And I said, it is. It really is. It's the same exact manual. There's no difference. Yeah. Look at all the number permutations with 4. And he makes 24. And he says he makes 24. And so I started studying more. And the Kabbalists say, once you do these permutations, the pen almost takes over. New ideas fly into you. New concepts come to you. And the jazz player says, new melodies came to me. And then new ideas came. They're saying the same thing.
Wow. It's pretty cool. It's also pretty amazing that you were able to connect the two so effortlessly, by the way.
I think I had a lot of training up to the moment, and then it hit me like lightning. It really did. It was a lightning bolt that just came out. And so I started, let me see if I can just help someone mute. I'm sorry to just mute a couple people here.
Did universal language, but he talked about.
Okay, that's all right. We just got some background commentary. So I made my own manual. This is my own manual that I wrote out. So I added different vowels and I did the same permutations. And these aren't actual Hebrew words, but when I say them and I practice them with a melody, then I'm able to come up with new ideas and the music starts flowing.
Right.
So what I think I'll do is here, I think I will demonstrate this page. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It does. Yes. And I think maybe if you could connect a little bit about how music then becomes your dialogue and that becomes our conversation, and that even though we're just doing different permutations, we're still able to connect even when we do it together.
Great. So that's the thing. When I tell people on a music instrument, there's really only 4 notes. and you can make up a little melody. Let me go ahead and go to camera 2, if I can.
You're so
I know I can.
excited to
I
do
know I
that.
can pull this off. I know this is like the techie nerdy side of me. I'm gonna geek out for a second. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so it's just 4 notes, and so everyone can do this, right? Just lean on me. It's the same notes. Okay, so what I do is I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 3. That's a set of 2 permutations. Or I do 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2. And someone could take the first one, and another person could take the second one. So somebody could go. You can do that call and response just with 4 notes.
So you're having a conversation musically with whomever's with you.
Yeah, or yourself. You can communicate with yourself and do call and response inside the music, and people can enjoy it.
Right.
So with 4 notes, you're ready to take off. It doesn't need to be intense music training.
Right.
And so the first line up there, I'm going to put my cursor over. If you can, do you see my cursor going over it?
Yep.
Okay. So this says Ovagiha. So when I put the music to it, it says Ovagiha, and then the next one is Evo Higa, and I just sang my own language. I'm creating my own language. And so I want to point out, that's what Abulafia says. He says Hebrew's called the holy language. It doesn't mean that other languages are not holy. He says all languages are holy. He just says that for prophecy, to connect to God, which is a unique feature of the Jewish people in our mission, is that Hebrew was the perfect mirror of how prophecy works. So for prophecy, it's the holy language because it works so perfectly. But Chinese, Arabic, whatever it is, they're all holy. And so I think he's right, because the mixture of vowels with letters allows you to do these permutations and feel that sense of holiness.
Do you think there's a way we could get our friends who have joined us, since it seems like most people are on mute, to maybe practice a little bit right now? And then they can really get a feel for what it would be like if they were to choose to do this, to meditate at home, to find their space, to get a little bit centered, and how, like, honestly, when Jason showed this to me the first time, I was like, okay, I'll try it. But it's super effective. And once you really practice it, just like anything else, it just becomes a habit, and it really lightens up the day. And I can speak to that for real, because it actually happened. So maybe our friends, go ahead, Jason.
I think that there are several people I've studied with here. I think towards the end of the class, if they'd like to jump on, I think they probably will. I think I would love, like, Michael Tannenbaum or Jan or Hari, anybody who'd like to jump on. So I will say that, I even brought this boom whacker, because I think if you really want to say, oh, I can't even handle piano, you can buy these for $2 and they make these little sounds. You can have so much fun just banging these out. Xylophones. So I think what I'll do is I'll do a couple more examples. We'll talk a little bit more, but if anybody does want to play a little bit, please come off mute and let us know, or put in the chat box that you'd feel comfortable to do so. So no one's going to be called out on the spot, I promise.
Right. So before you do a couple more, Jason, explain to everybody why we don't go like all systems go into Abulafia, where there's only parts of it that you like to touch on.
Very good. So one of the things about Abulafia, he was highly controversial, and he was really ostracized, and he was a traveling teacher, because he really ran up against the rabbinic establishment. And he did run up against the rabbinic establishment because in 2021, it's going to, great. Okay, Michael, excellent. In 2021, it's going to sound pretty cool. In 1240, it didn't sound so great. He said that there's a universal religion behind all religion. All people are part of one human family. Kabbalah is about the universal peace of Judaism. And so for a rabbi, living under intense persecution in Christian Europe or, other places, they just didn't see a path towards that. They thought that was very dangerous. And today it sounds like, yeah, let's give it a whirl. Back in his time, they did not like it. And he made a lot of statements like that, and he ran up into a lot of controversial topics. And his Kabbalah, his actual Kabbalah, is very high level, very intense. So I always tell people I'm not a teacher of Abulafia's Kabbalah written word, but I've taken from his system and applied it to music, and that's the big piece that I'm bringing.
Good. Thank you. Good. You want to share some more notes with us before we touch on some other points? What do you want to do?
Yeah. So what I want to show you right now, and by the way, as we're going, if anybody has Q&A, I know that we have Michael that'll jump in. If there's any Q&A, please let me know.
Yes.
And let me just see if there's anything. Can you please? Oh yeah, good. All right. So one of the big things that I happened on was unstructured music. If you can tolerate it, it really opens up the whole door to music. I have 8-year-old students do this, all the way up to whatever age of people I'm teaching, adults to kids. And I tell them, watch your fingers pick any note. See if you can tolerate this. People say, I really want to be non-judgmental. Here's your training ground. See if you can do this, okay?
Right.
So this is what I do when I practice. I first get to the piano and I do this. Close my eyes and I just watch the fingers, pick whatever they want to pick. It sounds like this. It's even hard for me to do that because I'm thinking everyone's listening and they're going to start coming off. They're going to leave the room. I have all those thoughts happen even when I was just doing that. And I know a lot of you. So, so when you do that unstructured playing, it just lets the fingers go. There's no kind of selecting notes. You get into a different part of the mind. And then I go into the permutations. But I have everybody do, and for myself, I do the unstructured. Then I slowly go into, then I add a couple other notes.
So do you find that you sort of give yourself the freedom and then it naturally finds the flow into those permutations?
So the Kabbalah talks about Chachma, one of the Sfirot, and I'll show that another time. There's a Kabbalistic tree. There's Chachma, which is unstructured, and there's Bina. Bina in Hebrew means to build or to understand. Right. So I think of what I just did as unstructured, and then I bring it into Bina, and I really follow the Kabbalah tree, and it's very helpful as a map of how to let the music come through you rather than being good at music. No, it's no fun to be good at music.
Right, and not force it, just feel
and
it.
not force it.
Yeah. One more question, Jason, and then we can open it up to anybody else who wants to share or play or ask questions. 2040 is a big year in relation to all of this, right?
Yes. So Abulafia saw himself as a unique person in the world because he was born on the Jewish year of 5000, which was 1240. So he was one of the first people in the history of the Jewish people to teach Jewish mysticism publicly. It was always done with the elite. I mean, you have to think about the time that most people were uneducated, couldn't read. Right. So if you could read and could study, and then you studied Kabbalah, it was very hard to think I could teach this on a mass level. Sure. And they kept it secret. He was one of the first people, I think he was the first person to teach it publicly. And so I think we're all the beneficiaries of that. And then the Zohar came and the Hasidic movement came and all these groups built out in their own unique ways. But so 1240 to 2040 would be the 800th year birthday of Abulafia. So I'm hoping that I can work on this for just the next 19 years. It's not like a big commitment. Yeah.
Not long.
If I could pencil it in, I got some extra free time to get us to a vision of, what would the future look like if people got used to, if kids learn from a small age, what you could do with 4 notes and permutations, and you could talk to people. And if that can be a secondary language, I think other secondary universal language can come out of that. So I think 2040 is like a target goal for me.
Okay, I feel like you can get there. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
So we can invite our friends if they want to share anything, if they have questions. I feel a little weird asking you to raise your hand, but that might be the most organized way, and then we can unmute whomever. Would anybody like to share anything or talk about their experiences with what Jason's teaching us? Or share, Michael, yeah.
I do have a question. Thank you, Jason and Shoshana. This is so interesting. My question is, and I remember that you went through this with me a few months ago on video, but when you're doing the 4 notes, I noticed that you have Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled in the chart, or he has that. And what I'm seeing both in the jazz example you showed and in your written out one, everything's backwards here. I forget which hand I'm supposed to use. That there's a hey in there instead of a Daled. I'm just wondering, is that just you can use any 4 tones, and as long as you stay within those with all the permutations, or is there a reason why you use hey?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I'm just doing one example, but you can use minor notes and different Hebrew letters. I used hey because I actually like to play note 1, 2, 3, and 5. I think it sounds better than hitting 4 sometimes. So I started using that as my 4th note. So I go da 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 da.
Because there's no rules. You just
There's
do
no
it,
rules.
right?
There's no rules. It's just start with 4. If you start with 3 notes, there's only like 9 permutations. If you start with 4, there's 24. So that's a good amount to practice. If you start with 5, you're up to 120. So no one's going to do that. So I like 4 because it's just a nice, good goal to get to, not too small, not too big. And then you can use lam and mem nun, and you can use, other notes. But again, Michael, you're hitting on the whole point of this whole class is that there are no rules. My favorite line of The Simpsons was that they were at rock summer camp, and I think it was the Keith Richards person came out and said, the first rule of rock and roll is that no rules. And that's really the first rule of Abulafia, is that there's no rules. It's just I'm trying to give tools that people will say, it's interesting Jason does it that way, but I really want to do it this way. And I'll be like, that's what we're looking for. And that kind of, when I see the growth of religion and the growth of, particularly like the Orthodox practice, and all the rules and the tradition and all the structure, it's terrific. I need a counterforce to that. The yin needs a yang. And so the individuality of, if a rabbi would come out and say, hey, you make it up, you're not going to hear too many rabbis say that. But if it can be part of the Jewish path, look, we do Shabbat and Kashrut and we do all those things. There's got to be a part where you blaze your own trail. That trail has not been led. And I want you to do that. So that you really bring up a great point, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I'll tell you something interesting. I have a younger brother he's the lead guitar player, and he's into the Allman Brothers now. And he was playing me some stuff from early 70s. And Dwayne Allman does some stuff similar with his licks to what you're talking. Now I'm paying attention since we talked about it. So
excellent.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
It works
It's
well.
funny. You'll probably see it like everywhere now.
You're gonna, Shoshana said it perfectly right. Michael is a great example. You'll see it everywhere. You'll say, oh, wait a minute, is that what everyone's doing? There was somebody I was teaching music to last year, and he's like, I still can't get the guitar. I need more lessons with you. I said, I'm actually a better teacher. I really improved. So I came over, gave him a couple lessons, and he came back. He said, oh, I figured out Lean on Me, and I figured out an Animal song. They're all doing permutations. And I was like, you could have been a rock star if you met me 30 years ago, but you just decided not to.
Right. So I want to touch back on really quickly again, Michael. Thank you. That was terrific. One second, Lauren. So really is another way of what you're saying, Jason, is that yes, we all have our different faiths and we can practice in that way. But with this piece that you're sharing with us, we can sort of go on our own spiritual path, and the two of them can still be harmonious.
That's what I'm looking for. I see the whole society breaking up into like secular and religious and this and that. There's like a lot of dualism out there. And I think a lot of it comes from people saying, I'm not going to listen to any structures, too authoritarian. And other people saying, hey, if we don't have any structure, we have no society. And can we pull them in together? And I'll say one more thing. The logical incoherence of monotheistic religion is we don't have a way to get together.
Right.
I don't have a way to pray with Muslims and Christians and Sikhs and Baha'is. So if you had music as a starting point, I'm sure there are going to be lots of others, but music as a starting point where we can pray together, that would really reflect